page 790. From fairest creatures we desire increase, that there by beauty's rose might never die. But as the riper should by time decease, his tender air might bear his memory. But thou, contracted to thine own bright eyes, feeds thy light's flame with self-substantial fuel, making a famine where abundance lies, thyself thy foe, to thy sweet self too cruel. Thou that art now the world's fresh ornament, and only herald to the gaudy spring, within thine own bud buryest thy content, and tender churl makes to waste in niggardine. So, the three quatrains set up this argument, let's say. Okay, notice, from fairest creatures we desire increase. From the most beautiful creatures we desire increase, right? I mean, probably millions of people, I would bet, I'd be willing to bet whatever money's in my wallet, which is probably like $2 or $3, just can't wait to see what Prince William's and Kate Middleton's child looks like. Is the child going to be blessed with Kate's looks or not? Okay? Because what do we generally not want to see happen? I mean, let's just be completely frank and honest here. We don't want to see ugly people reproduce. We don't want to see more ugly people in the world. We like to look around and see, oh, beautiful, handsome people, Hollywood people, okay? Why? That thereby beauty's rose might never die. We want to see the beautiful people get married, have children, so that beauty will go on. But as the riper should by time decease, his tender air might bear his memory, the riper. As you get more ripe, what happens? Your time deceases, dies off. So that as you get older and older and older, the tender air, the young child, might bear his memory. What does that mean? You can look at that young child and say, oh yeah, I see the rip. Wow, that's what you used to look like? Man, you were a looker. What happened? That's what it means. Okay? But thou, contracted to thine own bright eyes, meaning reduced to your own bright eyes, you feeds thy light's flame with self-substantial fuel. Well, how does a flame burn? Let's say a log. It burns away. In other words, the log is its own self-substantial fuel. It is the thing providing the light. It is the thing providing the flame. But what happens, the more light, the more flame there is, the less log there is. Thou feeds thy light with self-substantial fuel and makes a famine where abundance lies. In other words, in your eyes, there is abundance of beauty. But because the individual being addressed has not reproduced, that abundance of beauty is what? Wasting. Thyself, thy foe. That is, you are enemy to yourself, to thy sweet self too cruel. Thou that art now the world's fresh ornament. This guy is, the person being addressed, ladies, pick your ideal man. That's him. This is the most gorgeous man alive. Okay? That's why he's the world's fresh, the new ornament. And only herald to the gaudy spring. Herald, the harbinger, the forerunner. What he's saying is, yeah, there's going to be other pretty people after you, but they will be what? Gaudy. It's not true beauty. It's made up. It's Max Factor beauty. Or Maybelline beauty. Within thine own bud, thou, I'm throwing in that thou, buryest thy content. That is the whole source and soul of your being. And tender churl, that's how you know it's a male, churl, makes waste in niggarding. What did you mean by niggarding? He's cheap. Okay, what does the gloss say? Behaving in a miserly fashion.
Scrooge.
He's Scrooge. But with what? With himself. He's a Scrooge with his seed. Pity the world. Take pity on the rest of us. Or else this glutton be. Or else be this kind of glutton. To eat the world's due by the grave and thee. That is, you will be a glutton. How? Because you will be eating, the gluttony charge, what is due to the world, what is owed to the world. You will be eating that how? By not sharing of yourself and by going to the grave. Okay? This is an argument for procreation. Now look at number 2. I'm glad they actually gave us at least 2 early ones in order. When 40 winters shall besiege thy brow, and dig deep trenches in thy beauty's field, thy youth's proud livery, so gazed on now, will be a tattered weed of small worth held. Then being asked, where all thy beauty lies, where all the treasure of thy lusty days, to say, within thine own deep sunken eyes, or in all evil shame and thriftless praise. How much more praise deserved thy beauty's use, if thou couldst answer, this fair child of mine shall sum my count and make my old excuse, proving his beauty by succession thine. This were to be new made when thou art old, and see thy blood warm when thou feelst it cold. Now, Shakespeare's playing on a whole bunch of different ideas in that poem. The first one, when 40 winters shall besiege thy brow. If we were writing this today, we probably wouldn't say when you're 40. We would probably say when you're 70. Okay? Different expecting lifespans. So when you're 40 and your face is all wrinkled, thy youth's proud livery, that is, its clothing, its appearance to the outside world, so gazed on now, in other words, when this guy enters a room, boom, all eyes are on him. It will be a tattered weed of small worth held. You need an example? Look at, I'm going to choose some actors. Look at an actor today, like Mickey Rourke, and compare Mickey Rourke today with what Mickey Rourke looked like 30 years ago. And you would not say, this is the same guy. This is what hard living will do to you. Okay? That can't be plastic surgery. It's got to be the hard living. The drugs and everything took its toll on him.
Boxing.
Okay, or the boxing. Yeah, I forgot about the boxing. Look at Muhammad Ali. Let's use boxing. Look at Muhammad Ali today, and look at Muhammad Ali in the 60s. Not only could he float like a butterfly and sting like a bee, but he was good looking. And now he's just, horrible. Okay? That's what he's getting at. You wouldn't look at the one today and say, man, you must have been really handsome 40 years ago or 30 years ago, etc. Okay? So then, when you're 40, being asked where all thy beauty lies, where all the treasure of thy lusty days. Lusty means not only when you were full of lust, but it means when you were young, when you were full of life. Here's what you could say. Within thine own deep sunken eyes? that were an all-eating shame and thriftless praise. Thriftless means it has no reward. It has no boon. No. So you get the change or the turn. Remember in that Italian sonnet form, you almost always get after line 8 what's called the volta, which means the turn. Okay? Slight change of emphasis or a contradiction is implied. How much more praise? Deserve thy beauty's use, if you could answer. This child of mine shall sum my count and make my old excuse. Look at this child, and you will see this is what I did with my youth. Proving his beauty by succession thine. I don't know if you're, in your family, if you or other members of your family can take a picture of yourself or a sibling and a parent and show them, and people go, man, spitting image. 3 of my kids, you can look at their pictures and look at me, and it's clear. But my youngest daughter, who's dark-haired, my other 3 kids are all blonde like I was. She's dark-haired. You could look at her and say, there's no way she's any relation to me. But you put my wife next to her, spitting image. I've got friends. Gal's 38, 39. Her grandmother is, 70 or so. Skip her mom. But she and her grandmother, pictures taken at similar times in her life, I am not kidding, they look like identical twins. It's like there is no intervening gene pool at all between them. That's what Shakespeare's getting at. So he says, he concludes, this being able to look at your child were to be new made when thou art old. Why? And see thy blood warm when thou feelst it cold. There's this Renaissance idea that the older you get, the cooler your blood is in temperature, and the more congealed it gets. So think of, a good Saturday morning breakfast of bacon and eggs, and you fry up a pound of bacon. What do you have left over? All that good hot grease. What happens to that grease if you just leave it into the pan for a while? It hardens. That's like what happens to our blood as we get older. So most of you, your blood is still, flowing through your veins real easily, but mine's kind of like, having a hard time. Okay? Notice, first sonnet, go have children. Second sonnet, because 40 years from now, if you don't, you're going to be old and dying, and you're going to be saying, I remember when I was young and handsome. And people are going to go, yeah, really? Prove it. It's not like they can pull out their Polaroid. Okay? Number 12. And one thing you should be noticing through these already, what's one of Shakespeare's favorite themes?
There's so many.
Well, there are many. Time. He loves to write about time. Okay? And another one that we'll see is appearance versus reality. What appears to be true and what is really true. And too bad we don't have time to, read King Lear or read Hamlet or something, because then you could just really go into all of those. Take my Shakespeare class this fall, because I'll do that. Look at number 12. When I do count the clock that tells the time, and see the brave day sunk in hideous night. Now, again, as I did with Spencer yesterday, look at Shakespeare's rhythm in the sonnets and compare it with Wyatt and Surrey and even Shakespeare. They don't come close. Shakespeare's words come off the tongue easily. Wyatt and Surrey, you kind of have to struggle with them a bit. When I do count the clock that tells the time, notice the alliteration. Count the clock that tells the time, and see the brave day sunk in hideous night. When I behold the violet past prime, and sable curls all silvered o'er with white. When lofty trees I see barren of leaves, which erst from heat did canopy the herd, and summer's green all girded up in sheaves, borne on the bier with white and bristly beard. Then, kind of like Chaucer, Juan de la Prio, then, when I do these things, okay, line 9, turn, then of thy beauty I do question make, or ask if you want, that thou among the wastes of time must go, since sweets and beauties do themselves forsake, and die as fast as they see others grow. And nothing 'gainst time's scythe can make defense, save breed to brave him when he takes thee hence. Now, notice the emphasis on time. What does time do to everything? It withers it. It destroys it. It eats it. It decays it. And even, you almost expect that final couplet to be some kind of savior against time. But it's not. Nothing against time's scythe can make defense. Except maybe breed to brave him. To brave, to oppose him. Have children to oppose him. Not because it's going to stop him from taking you hence. No, when he takes the hence. Because what do we still say? You can live on in your children. Your children, your family, your line goes on after you. Okay? Look at 15. I mean, he's gonna bang that drum of time over and over and over. When I consider everything that grows, holds in perfection but a little moment. I mean, there you have in a couplet, in 2 lines, okay, the Carpe Diem theme. You grow, you reach perfection, and then you start to decline. Okay? That this huge stage presenteth naught but shows. There's your appearance versus reality. The world presents nothing but plays, whereon the stars in secret influence comment. Okay? The whole astrology idea. When I perceive that men as plants increase, cheered and checked even by the self-same day. Cheered and checked. Cheered, they're encouraged. They blossom forth, and yet that very self-same day, they're what? Checked. They're stopped. They're impeded. Vaunt in their youthful sap. At height, decrease. And wear their brave state out of memory. They decay until their glory fades from memory, until no one even remembers them. Real cheery stuff, right? Then the conceit of this inconstant stay sets you, most rich in youth, before my sight. That is, I think about this, and then I think of you, rich in youth. This person being addressed, he's at the height of his youth. 18, 19, 20, something like that probably. And I see you where wasteful time debateth with decay to change your day of youth to sullied night. Time and decay are kind of like arguing, oh yeah, well, which one of us is going to get him, take him first? And all in war with time for love of you, as he takes from you, time, as he takes from you, I engraft you anew. Look at your gloss for engraft. Insert a scion, or shoot from one tree into the bark of another, from which it gains sustenance. What does he really mean? How does the speaker engraft the youth anew?
I'm going to suck the life out of someone that does have that kind of quality of childishness.
Possibly.
Appropriate.
What's he doing? What's the speaker doing? What has the speaker told us in 14 lines about this youth? The youth is young and beautiful, right? What has the speaker done in the poem?
He's pretty much said that, he was perfect when he's young, but he's not young anymore. So he's kind of like dying.
Or he won't be young.
Yeah.
So how does he engraft him to make him new? He writes about his beauty. The writing is the engrafting. What's at the heart of that word? How does he spell it? FT. Engraft. It's this, which comes from this, not the place that you put a dead person. You inscribe. I've inscribed you new. Engraft has two meanings there. Okay? Look at, even though I haven't, do I have that on the syllabus? No, I don't. Okay. Skip 16. I thought I had it on the syllabus. Oh, I didn't have 15 either. Sorry. Keep this in front of me. 18. One of Shakespeare's most famous of the sonnets. Usually if there's an anthology of the 100 best loved poems, this is in there. Okay. Unfortunately, most people think it's about a man writing to a woman. It's not. It's about the speaker addressing another male. If the speaker is male, which from a couple of the poems, it's pretty clear that it is. For example, number 20 that we'll look at. Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? Thou art more lovely and more temperate. Rough winds do shake the darling buds of May, and summer's lease hath all too short a date. Sometime too hot the eye of heaven shines, and often is his gold complexion dimmed. And every fair from fair sometime declines, by chance, or nature's changing course untrimmed. But thy eternal summer shall not fade, nor lose possession of that fair thou owest, nor shall death brag thou wanderest in his shade, when in eternal time lines to time thou growest. Okay? Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? Well, in order to do that, you have to imagine what a summer's day is like. Thou art more lovely and more temperate. More lovely than a summer's day. Here we are in the middle of summer. More temperate. Because what can a summer's day become? Think 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago. 114 degrees. It can become very hot. Not that hot in England, but it can become hot. Rough winds do shake the darling buds of May. May is known for its storms, and summer's lease hath all too short a date. Now, especially in England, summer can end, and I mean end, late August, where temperatures start dropping in September. I mean, they don't usually, they can have snows in October. Okay? This year, they're saying summer's gone. They had a couple days last week where it hit the 80s. Woohoo! Because it's been flooding pretty much all summer long. Sometime too hot the eye of heaven shines, and often is his gold complexion dimmed. Two opposites. Sometimes there are no clouds, and the sun is just blazing hot, and sometimes the gold complexion of the sun is dimmed by overcast clouds. And every fair from fair sometime declines. Beauty from beauty declines. Notice, the speaker is saying, just because Julie is beautiful does not necessarily mean that her daughter, Julietta, will be just as beautiful. She might be slightly less. And then Juliana might be even less beautiful than Julietta. Until you get all the way down here to George, and George doesn't look anything like Julia or whatever. Okay? But thy eternal summer shall not fade. This is how he's going to compare the speaker to a summer's day. Your summer shall not have a lease on its date. Your summer shall not lose possession of the fair, the beauty thou owest or owns. Nor will death brag that thou wanderest in his shade. When in eternal lines to time thou growst. Now there is a pun there on lines. Lines of poetry, also lines in a face. That is, the speaker is saying, even when you are old and wrinkled, your now eternal lines, that is, the lines in your face as you are old and wrinkled, will still be hidden by the eternal lines I have written, describing the beauty of your face. And then you get the summation. So long as men can breathe or eyes can see, in other words, as long as there is humanity, so long lives this poem. And this gives life to thee. As long as people are alive to read and see, the speaker says, you will live. Maybe not physically, but in my verse. Now, we talked about this just a little bit yesterday. Sir Philip Sidney, in Astrophil and Stella, makes it very clear to Stella, if you don't give in to me, I can make you live for eternity. And I can make you live as a goddess, or I can make you live as a whore. I can make people look up to you, or I can make people fear and shun you. Okay? Your choice. You know what you have to do in order for it to be this one. You know what not to do in order for it to be this one. Okay? Look at number 20. This is the poem that I think makes it fairly clear Shakespeare is not writing about a homoerotic relationship. He is writing about a relationship of love, but it doesn't mean it's an erotic relationship. One of you said you're going to do something about the varying states of love in one of the poems, and I don't remember which of you in which poem you're talking about. But Eros isn't the only kind of love. You have Eros, you have agape, which is kind of fellowship love among people. Okay? You have caritas, which is divine love, and you have storge, which I'm drawing a big blank on. I think this is the kind of, I shouldn't say, I think, I'm not positive, that this is the kind of love that you say, you love your pet, kind of a thing. I'm not positive about that, but it's, okay? I think what Shakespeare is writing in this poem about is agape love. The love two men can have for each other that has nothing whatsoever to do with sex. Or the love two women can have for each other that has nothing whatsoever to do with sex. But our century, and the last century, is so wound up, so caught up with sex is everything, that we kind of lose sight of these older, deeper relationships, let's say. Look at number 20. A woman's face with nature's own hand painted hast thou, the master mistress of my passion. Well, there's some gender bending. How can you be master mistress? A woman's gentle heart, but not acquainted with shifting change, as is false women's fashion. So what's the speaker saying? You have a woman's gentle heart, but you're not a woman. Why? Because you're not false like women. You just can't trust a woman because she'll say she loves you and then she'll dump you and move on to the next. Whole reversal of the 20th century kind of notion of male-female relationships. An eye more bright than theirs, than women's, less false in rolling. And what does he mean by rolling? Shifting its object of gaze. Okay? You have an eye brighter than theirs, that is, those beams that shoot out are even brighter, but when your eye lights on an object, it stays. Okay? He's talking about the person being addressed, faithfulness, constancy, gilding the object whereupon it gazeth. A man in hue, that is appearance, all hues in his controlling. It's a beautiful line. What does it mean? How can you control all hues? Okay, if hue means appearance, how can his appearance, all appearances, be in his controlling? We have a phrase for this today, or we have examples of this. What would happen if, say, no, I'm going to have to ask a question. Ladies, give me an example of a quote-unquote hot actor.
Ryan Gosling.
Ryan Gosling. What would happen if Ryan Gosling just walked in that door? Would your eyes, like they are now, be on me? Hell no. Okay. Or Barack Obama walked in there. And I don't care your political beliefs. Your eyes would turn. Okay. Guys, if Kate Upton walked in the door, you wouldn't be looking at me. You'd be looking at her. Okay. That's what's meant. How is his hue, all hues controlling? This guy is so handsome. Even men look at him and go, it's just not fair. Why him? Why couldn't I get, 1% of that? Why couldn't I be the 1%er of that, so to speak? Okay? Which steals men's eyes and women's souls amazeth. In other words, the men look and they're jealous, and the women look, they're not jealous. They're thinking something else. Okay? And for a woman wert thou first created. Now, that's a little ambiguous. For a woman wert thou first created. That means, as a woman, you were supposed to be a woman. Until nature As she wrought thee, fell a doting. Nature the goddess, as she created this man, she's just so falling in love with this work. She by addition me of thee defeated. You were supposed to be a woman, but she added something to you. And that something that she added to you defeated me. Why? Because the speaker already has that thing too. By adding one thing to my purpose, nothing. And Shakespeare is punning on this word of nothing. Why? What's his purpose? You were originally created to be a woman. I'm a man. Women and men what? They have intercourse. How do they have intercourse? Well, he has an addition. That is, the speaker has an addition. And if she hadn't added something through doting, she would have nothing. How do you represent nothing? A circle? Okay. But since she pricked thee out for women's pleasure, okay, notice your gloss, slang. Prick was also a slang term in Shakespeare's day for penis. But since she pricked thee out for women's pleasure, because she gave you a prick, in other words, mine be thy love. And thy love's use, their treasure. The speaker is saying, I don't want your penis. I want your love. It's not erotic. Okay? It's agape. Or possibly even caritas. But he's not saying, let's you and I go off and hit the hay. He's not saying that. He's saying, no. You're made for women. Go do that. Give them your body. Give me what? Your mind, your heart, your soul. Okay? It seems to me to be, it's the exact opposite of a homoerotic poem. Okay, what's the next one on the syllabus? 29? Yes, 29. And then we'll take a break. Woo, we've, done 5 on the syllabus. When in disgrace with fortune and men's eyes, I all alone beweep my outcast state, and trouble deaf heaven with my bootless cries, and look upon myself and curse my fate, wishing me like to one more rich in hope, featured like him with friends possessed, desiring this man's art and that man's scope, with what I most enjoy contented least. Yet in these thoughts myself almost despising, haply I think on thee, and then my state, like to the lark at break of day arising, from sullen earth sings hymns at heaven's gate, for thy sweet love remembered such wealth brings, that then I scorn to change my state with kings. Okay? When in disgrace with fortune and men's eyes, I all alone beweep my outcast state. He's saying here, he is unfortunate, and in men's eyes, he's outcast or downcast, or looked at as being low or base or common. He says, and so I pray to heaven, I cry with my bootless cries. God's not answering my prayers. I look on myself and I curse my fate. Because what do? I wish that I was like someone more rich in hope. That is, that I had a solid, sound basis for hope. That my hope would be met, would be fulfilled. that I would be featured like him. In other words, that I would look like Ryan Gosling. Okay? And I'd be like him, like somebody else, with friends possessed, meaning well connected. That's what he means by that. Not just having more friends. He means having friends of influence and power. That I could be desiring this man's art, that is, have this man's skill, and that man's scope, that man's breadth of influence. And yet, when I think these thoughts, myself almost despairing, meaning that he's sitting there and he's, got like his revolver and he's spinning the chamber. And he's thinking, should I? Should I? Happily, I think on thee. That is by chance. Boop, the individual pops into his mind, and like the lark at break of day, what? From sullen earth sings hymns at heaven's gates. As soon as he thinks of the other person, all those sorrows just go away. For thy sweet love remembered. Why remembered? What tense is that?
Like the other person's dead.
Okay. Could be like the other person's dead. What else could it be?
Absent.
There's an absence. Whatever the absence is caused by. It could be that the absence is caused by the downcast eyes of men. There's something wrong about this relationship. Like maybe in the Renaissance, it's not heterosexual. Okay? Then, he says, I scorn to change my state with kings. Even being downcast, even not having everything the speaker would like to have, not having the gifts, not having the face, not having the riches, not having the friends, not having the power, not having the influence, he says, being little old, pitiable me, I wouldn't change my state with a king. Because keep in mind, a king could do what? Yeah, exactly, anything. Okay? A king's eye falls on a woman who happens not to be his wife. Doesn't matter. Okay? All right, let's take a break, and then we'll come back and try to do quite a few more.